We have today a fantastic session which is talking about communication specifically to women and how targeting a particular area of the workforce can increase participation within those particular groups significantly. I'm very excited on behalf of Employee Ownership Australia to introduce both of our speakers. We have Jessica Mitchell from Tapestry on the line, and we'll be starting the presentation. So Jessica is from the UK, is a UK and Australian qualified lawyer, and she works for Tapestry Compliance. She has over 10 years experience specialising in legal and tax due diligence for international share plans, first for Linklaters and now for Tapestry. She's going to be our first presenter today, and then the second presenter is Joanna Mack from Brambles. Again, Joanna has a huge amount of experience in dealing with employee workforces around communication of plans. And if any of you were at the conference, you would have heard her speak incredibly enthusiastically about some of her experiences. So I'm sure today, between both of the presenters, we'll learn a significant amount about this area. So I might pass over immediately to Jessica if you'd like to start the presentation, which is already on everyone's screen. Yeah, and we can get started. Can I ask that any questions be put into the chat box? So at the bottom of your control panel, you'll see a chat box. So if you just type those in there, what will happen at the end of each presenter's session, they will be answering those questions for you. So if you've got anything that arises during the presentation, don't hesitate to put them in the chat boxes for us. Okay, Jessica, I'll hand over to you without further ado, and I look forward to the presentation.
Thank you, Angela. As Angela mentioned, the topic today is female participation in share plans, just with a more catchy title from the movie a while back. We'll be talking for about half an hour, and then we'll, as Angela said, we'll look at any questions. The presenters are myself. I'm a Global Incentives Advisor and UK and Australian qualified lawyer. And Joanna, who is a Senior Manager for Brambles and runs the Brambles Share Plans. Tapestry is a boutique HR law firm which was founded about 5 years ago, and we specialise in legal and tax compliance for global employee equity programs. The firm is UK-based, and we work with a network of expert local counsel in most countries around the world, and we provide an online interactive database on global share plans for our clients. We advise many of the leading global companies and administrators, and some of the awards that we've won in the past year include Boutique Law Firm of the Year in the Legal Business Awards 2016. Janet Cooper, one of the founding partners, also was awarded the inaugural IFS ProShare Award 2015 for services to employee share ownership. Janet is also passionate about gender equality, and she sat on the UN Board for Women in the UK for the past 6 or so years. About Brambles.
Brambles it's a supply chain logistic company operating in more than 60 countries and primarily through the CHEP and IFCO brands. And we specialize in the pooling of returnable pallets, crates, and containers. At the moment, we have 15,000 employees, and about 80% of them are male, and over 60% of them are blue-collar workers. Yeah, back to you, Jess.
So what we're going to cover today is why is full inclusion important, looking at some key data about this, and then we've got 2 case studies, one on Brambles, which is, of course, an Australian company, 80% male workforce, and the other on Marks & Spencer, a major UK retailer, which has an 80% female workforce. We will look at the different perceptions of different types of share award between men and women, some findings on where the demographics are important, and then conclude with some key considerations for global share plan design and communication. So what kind of diversity and inclusion are we talking about? Well, when we think of diversity, we're not just talking about gender. We should also be looking at other forms of diversity and inclusion within the organisation. But today we are focusing on gender. Should also mention that we're focusing on that within the context of broad-based all employee plans. rather than the high-end discretionary plans, although of course that's also important in the executive plans, but we're focusing on the all-employee voluntary plans in this webinar. Why does inclusion matter? Principally, it's a business issue. It's about engagement. The reason why you have employee share ownership mostly is to get better engagement with employees, for them to partner with you in the business, to have more interest in seeing the business do well. So it's mostly about engagement. And if you're missing a certain proportion or certain segments of your workforce, you will not have the engagement that you're looking for. So it helps to better achieve the company's goals by employee ownership and engagement. Of course, there are also legal obligations to make sure that there's no unlawful discrimination. And overseas, in the UK especially, there's an increasing movement to disclose the company pay gap. Currently, the pay gap disclosure is normally around salary and particular benefits that everyone gets, which are more easily measured. But it is interesting to extend that analysis to voluntary plans, as some companies are now doing. What do you currently do? Do you measure diversity and inclusion? And if so, what has prompted that? Do you take it into account in your plan design and communications in terms of which work groups you have? For example, women, race, religion. Do you consider the different mediums of communication to impact different work groups, different age groups, etc.? Looking at the impact of different types of award, passive awards are where you grant awards without anything required from the employees, which is more normally the case for executive plans. Active participation is where you want them to apply for it. So the unilateral executive awards, where it's the company's decision whether and who to grant to, in that context, you would look to make sure that when you consider who you made awards to and the amount of the awards, that there is a fair balance of participation and there is no inherent discrimination. Where there's an investment decision to be made, for example, with an employee share purchase plan where they have to agree what level of deductions they're going to have, or a savings-related plan like the UK Sharesave plan where they're going to agree monthly savings in order to exercise an option later, or some other co-investment plan, then we find that different groups have different take-up levels. And do different groups behave differently on vesting? Do they keep them or do they sell? And is it the company's responsibility to help them understand what their levels of investment are? So these are the kind of things to consider when you're looking at diversity. Before the original Tapestry webinar on this topic, Fidelity, which is a diversified financial services firm based in the States, was kind enough to share some of their research on female investment. So that research indicates that females are savers. Women save more than their male counterparts across all income levels. However, women are not investors. It appears that a lot of women are lacking confidence in investing, and as a result, they're saving rather than investing. Fidelity is also a leading provider of share plan administration services in the States. So these next few slides show some research from 2014 on female participants in stock plans and the differences between females and their male counterparts, whether across long-term incentive plans or stock savings plans. So I know the value of my awards. 79% of women agreed with that statement versus 91% of men. I know my grant price was 67% of females and 84% of men. I am very satisfied with my stock plan. It's just 51% of women and 62% of men. I understand my stock plan, 36% of women and 51% of men. And importantly, I feel more loyal because of my stock plan, 47% of women and 59% of men. So across the board, there is a significant difference in awareness and effectiveness around stock programs. Is there a justifiable explanation for this? Well, when you look at the composition and seniority of the workforce, particularly for LTIPs, there are fewer women in senior roles, and as companies focus their LTIPs on senior roles, there is a difference between the number of women who have access to those plans and the number of men. We also know that there's a significant difference in attitudes around investment. The research indicates that women are very good investors because they exhibit more age-appropriate asset allocation. women investors have a longer-term focus, whereas male investors tend to have a shorter-term focus. So women who are investing are good investors, but there are fewer women who invest because they lack the confidence in it. Fidelity has also studied the difference between how men and women like to receive information. Men learn very effectively through technology, whereas women prefer to learn through connections with family and friends. And as demonstrated by the Marks and Spencer case study that we'll talk about soon, there is a difference in how the different forms and styles and media share plan communications are perceived. Finally, some parting thoughts beyond gender, some other interesting statistics from Fidelity showing behaviour by age. What I found surprising was that young employees under 30 years are more likely to hold their shares, whereas employees between 30 to 50 years old are more likely to be sellers, which is presumably dictated by their life stage needs. I'll pass you over now to Joanna to take you through the Brambles case study.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, cool. So, hello everyone. In this part of the presentation, I'm going to talk about Brambles. And as a company, we do measure diversity and inclusion. We report our findings and what we've done through our sustainability review each year. It is publicly available, so you can get a copy from the Brambles website. Today, I'll focus on what we've done as a company for gender diversity and also have a look at our employee share program and how it contributes to our sustainability framework and employees' engagement. And so as part of the Brambles sustainability effort, we have set targets and work towards these goals. So as you can see, I know it's a bit blurry on the screen. Under people and inclusion and diversity, it's one of our goals under the Better Business measure. And our target is to achieve women to represent 30% of Brambles board and the executive leadership team by 2015 and management position by 2018. So as of 15, we have 33% of our board as female and 14% of our executive leadership team are women, and 24.8% of management positions are also held by women. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we have improved throughout the years and we continue to work towards our goals. And then this slide, I guess in terms of the more general population, like I said before, we are actually very male dominant, and so we've got 80% male employees and only 20% female employees. In management level, it is a bit better, so it's 75% male and 25% female, and it's, I guess, the best ratio is in corporate office where it is a lot more balanced. But I guess we do expect that because, you know, I am in the supply chain logistics sectors and we have a lot of blue collar workers, and that's why they tend to be a lot more male dominant. And so in FY15, Brambles has actually focused on creating an inclusion environment. And we've actually held seminars that foster thinking, I guess, open-mindedness or open-mindedly. And what we've also piloted this seminar with our IT function globally and our top 100 senior leaders. And the program is to help participants to understand how the actions and behaviors can help Brambles develop an inclusive culture, interact with diverse teams, and understand what diversity means in the context of the work and marketplace, and also understand the benefits of inclusivity and raise awareness of unconscious bias. And next, in terms of our salary ratios, at management level, males are slightly higher, so they're paid at 1.15, I guess, ratio to, if females 1, then males is slightly higher. But if you look at the non-management, if you look at the non-management level and the group as a whole, then actually female has a slightly higher salary ratio. So non-management, it's males only 0.083, and as a group, males only 0.87. And then next slide. Yeah. Okay. So on the share plan front, My Share is one of Brambles' benefit program for its global workforce, and it's been designed to give employees the opportunity to build ownership in the company. And through participation in My Share, employees can purchase Brambles shares using funds from their post-tax salary. And as an incentive to investing in the company, Brambles matches employees' share on a one-for-one basis. And the conditions to receive the matching shares are the employees will have to retain the ownership of the shares that they have purchased for 2 years and remain employed within the Brambles group. So at the moment, with roughly 4,000 employees in the plan globally, and it's roughly 31% participation rate. So I guess from my perspective, the program design is pretty much gender neutral. In terms of communication style, I guess my biggest issue is more the language and not so much, I guess, gender. I have a large population that English is not the first language. And so I guess my approach is to make communication simple and fun. We do have a My Share website and video. This is also publicly available, so feel free to go and check it out. And I guess for this presentation, I did do some high-level analysis and find that the demographics of the My Share participants actually roughly reflects the Brambles population. So as you can see on the chart on the top right-hand corner, the My Share demographic, it's 73% male and 27% female. So yeah, it roughly mirrors what we've got. So I'm happy with that. And in fact, there's a bit more female than than our demographic. And in terms of age group, the My Share participants seems to be a bit skewed towards the age 40 plus brackets. And I haven't really done I haven't done much further analysis, but if I have to guess why this is the case, I think that employees who are age 40 plus, they might be a bit more financially mature, and like Jess said, they might view investments, a bit more long term. Whereas, age 40 or below, they might be more focused on other things, like getting a car, buying a house, or starting a family. And I guess the other point is, in the program, for you to receive the matching share benefits, you have to be employed by the company for at least 2 years. So I guess maybe some of the age 40 plus might not stay in a job for 2 years, or if not more, to receive the benefits. But these are my guess. And lastly, I guess in terms of the My Share and employee engagement and retention piece, I guess I'm pretty happy to say that 87 of the 2015 My Share participants continue to participate in the 2016 plan. And actually more than a third of the My Share participants have been contributing to the My Share plan for at least the last 5 years. And comments that I've received from employees from the engagement survey and from day-to-day interactions with our employees, I do feel that our employees do value the My Share program a lot, and they see it as an important part of their benefits. Therefore, I do hope that the program has achieved its goals of aligning employees and shareholders' interests, and hence, being able to contribute to building a sustainable business for Brambles. So yeah, that's the Brambles part. Jess, I'll hand it back to you.
Oh, thank you, Joanna. That's such a great example of effective communications of a share plan. I'm now going to talk through another case study from Marks and Spencer. Um, sorry, I'm just having trouble with my slides. I'll just be a moment.
Try the right arrow or the up and down arrow.
Okay. Sorry about this. There we go. Okay, so Marks and Spencer is a major multinational retailer which is headquartered in the UK and listed on the London Stock Exchange. It has 75,000 UK employees, 4,000 of which are based in their head office, 70,000 spread across 546 stores, and 1,000 based in distribution centres. So of that workforce, 74% are female and 80% work part-time. The average annual salary in shops is just £10,000 per annum. So that means not much disposable income for their target audience, which is in the shops, and that impacts how they communicate and position their benefits generally. So that's just a snapshot of the M&S audience and how they need to communicate quite specifically as well. Sharesave is the company's Save As You Earn scheme, which is a tax advantage plan under UK legislation. It's a typical Sharesave plan where there's a monthly deduction from salary anywhere between £5 and £250, although it is possible under the legislation to set a higher cap. They save for 3 years. M&S initially offered either 3 or 5 years, but stopped offering 5 years when they looked at the history and saw that over 80% of people were choosing 3 years. Then they can buy the shares at the price set at the start of the scheme, and M&S gives the full 20% discount, which is allowed under the legislation. So back in 2009, the company had its slowest take-up in 5 years, even though the number of eligible employees had increased. They were increasing the number of stores and had dropped the service criteria down to 3 months. So they didn't understand why their employees were not taking up what they thought was the best benefit they could offer. So they started to talk to the employees and to find out why they hadn't engaged with Sharesave. It was not understood by the vast majority of employees, and the company had become complacent about this key element. They had taken last year's communications, dusted them down, changed the date, and sent them out without really thinking about what made the employee engage with the scheme and how they wanted to talk to their employees. Technology was also changing at that point and becoming much more interactive. So M&S then went to their source to discuss the issue. They're not unionised, but they have a very effective business involvement group. So in every store there are elected employees who then go all the way through to regional, countrywide, and then a European Works Council. What you see on the screen here was the Sharesave documentation in 2009. The words on the screen are what the employees were telling them. It's boring, you need to keep it simple, there was too much to read. The one in the bottom left-hand corner really struck home to them. Employees kept saying, it's very masculine, isn't it? So bearing in mind that the M&S workforce is almost 80% female and they're telling them that the communications are very masculine, it was a light bulb moment for the company. They realised they needed to fundamentally change it. So they then worked with their business involvement groups. They had listening groups across the country taking into account both southern and northern stores, etc. And they totally revamped what their Sharesave communications looked like. This slide shows what the Sharesave communications morphed into in 2010, so it's very different to where they were in 2009. It was trying to get the offering to be aspirational as well as more appealing to the female audience. So for the employees, it's not just about savings. You're going to get extra benefits, you're going to get 20% off, you're going to be able to save for the holiday of a lifetime or whatever you want. The smaller graphics that you can see there show a range of different things that an employee might want to save for, like gadgets, because they obviously didn't want to alienate their male workforce either. Generally, the communications have less words and they're much more enticing. So these next couple of slides show how it's changed every year. So when it was their 30th anniversary, rock solid since 1981. The next year, 2012, roll up, Sharesave. All these different designs and concepts were agreed with the business involvement groups. So they were really tapping into their workforce and getting them to say what they thought would excite their people. What became important is they wanted to see something different every year. So they tried to create an anticipation of what Sharesave going to look like this year, and also make it different enough that it wasn't just a corporate communication that they would then look at and think, oh, it's just another piece of paper with terms and conditions, I'm going to bin it. The next slide shows again how it's morphed over the next couple of years and the aspirational element. Imagine the possibilities has become a bit of a tagline over the past years. So the middle slide, the pink one, also tries to show that you don't need to save massive amounts. It can even just be £5 a month, and showing what small amounts could add up to. The company also wanted to tap into the younger workforce and try to get them to become regular savers. In the UK, as we hear, getting on the property ladder is a major challenge for young people. So they've given buying a new home as an example. This slide shows what the inside of the brochure looked like. The top left is what they had in 2009, so lots of words and reading. They realised they didn't need to tell them all that. It's easy steps. So you decide how much, we'll deduct it from your salary, you save for 3 years, then you can buy the shares at a 20% discount. Don't worry about the details, because in 3 years' time, we will come back to you and tell you exactly what you need to do to buy the shares. You don't need to know all of that now. So it really became less is more and much more focused on graphics over words and getting the right balance there. Of course, you always need to ensure that you're giving enough information and that the communication is not misleading in any way. But you can have a simple and concise brochure without clogging it up with legal information or nuts and bolts. This can be difficult, agreeing it with your legal team, but you can always have the signpost to where to find the full documents and T&Cs and any key terms that really need to be flagged. Usually you'll have all those other documents easily accessible online now. That also depends on how much risk there is in reality. So with Sharesave, there's no risk until the point of actually buying the shares, as you can always get your money back until then. Given the discount and the fixed option price, it is low risk even at vesting, but you can give more information and investment warning at that point. With a co-investment plan where there's less of a benefit and more risk of losing some money, you might want to focus a bit more on the investment warning in the main employee communication. So what's important, as Joanna pointed out, is that the employees are receiving the key information that they need at that time, and preferably in bite-sized pieces. So the lessons from M&S are that you need to do your communications with your employees in mind, the gender in mind, how they perceive communications, how they receive communications, and also the level of risk. And the other thing that M&S changed enormously over the past few years is the different channels they can use to communicate. So the brochure is the fundamental start, and they'll use notice boards in shops and table talkers in office rest areas. But now the website is key as well, and also social media. They have a closed business network which is interactive, so conversations can be started about Sharesave and big communications can be made. So they have made good use of new technology as well. Looking at the evidence, in 2009 there were no stats about what the breakdown of participants was, but moving forward to 2015, eligibility had gone up by 6%, but participation had gone up by 45%. 74% of eligible participations and about 82% of actual participants are female. So they do need to keep an eye on that too and make sure they don't alienate the male workforce. In terms of age group, the biggest group of participants is the 50 to 60 age group, but there are also people who are under 20 and people who are over 80. In terms of average savings, males are saving on average £96 a month, whereas for females it's 81. So overall, the company feels that it has not only increased participation, but that its predominantly female workforce is absolutely engaged with Sharesave. This year, Marks and Spencer will be looking more at ethnicity and how that might influence their communications. Looking at the style and language and the different forms of media we use, and basically reviewing the employee profile again and getting the communications to that. Just going to conclude with some key considerations. As we all know, employee share ownership can be a very powerful tool in the business when you get that engagement with it, both at the executive level and with broad-based plans. At the LTIP level, it's important to ensure that there is a full understanding of the awards and the value, and with all employee plans to make sure that you're reaching all demographics, or at least your key ones. There are different investment attitudes towards risk and time horizons and level of understanding, so that could impact on your plan design as well as your communications. Plan ahead. It's good to consider in detail what take-up rates you're aiming for and then looking at the demographics of your participants. Of course, considering more broadly than gender. As Joanna pointed out, language is really important when you have a lot of countries involved. Maybe race, religion, ethnicity, age groups, look at also at the other diversity aspects, and then consider what you would discuss if you had to disclose participation in your equity plans. So that concludes the presentation. It doesn't look like we have any questions, so I will pass you back to Angela. Thank you so much for listening in.
Thanks so much, Jessica and Joanna. I think that was really, really useful. I was kind of interested particularly about, I think, some of the feedback that employees have been given, particularly in the Marks and Spencer's one, but it was interesting to hear the different views and how to engage with people. So thank you both. I think that was very helpful. I'm just going to check in one more time. Is there any more final questions from anyone? You can go to the chat box at the bottom and add them if you'd like to now. I'll just wait to see if there's any more questions or any questions. Okay, well, it doesn't look like there's any questions, which means you're very thorough. So I'd like to thank everyone today for attending the webinar. It was incredibly useful, I think, for everyone to do that, and particularly the presenters for the time and effort they've put into pulling together the information and sharing it with us. So thank you, everyone. And this webinar will be available online afterwards on the Employee Ownership Australia site. If you have any questions or feedback, there will be a feedback form after the session that will be sent through to you, and we're always open to hearing about that or finding out what people are interested in for future sessions. So thanks, everyone, and thanks particularly to our presenters today.